Hello Summoners, and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathan Ng, and today we'll be talking about the 10 champions that will never lose the early game. There are many different mentalities on how to approach the game of League of Legends, and while some champions are geared towards winning the early game as hard as possible, other champions are just geared towards the simple act of not losing. Before we get into it, our question of the day is, which champion is your favorite to blind pick? For me personally, I love blind picking Ezreal. He's pretty versatile and a safe AD carry. I would love to hear your answer in the comment section down below. Now, without further ado, Aatrox is our first pick for top laners looking to lock in a secure early game. Aatrox is a sustained bruiser with large sweeping AoE strikes. He's an excellent early game champion that only a few champions can go toe to toe with, and even fewer can actually kill him thanks to that lifesteal built into his kit. His passive heals him based on the max health of the target he auto-attacks, and the passive built into his E's dash also gives him more healing from attacking champions. If he somehow ends up in danger despite all of his healing, his ultimate gives him even more healing, plus enough damage and movement speed to turn a bad fight into an advantageous one. Even without his ult though, the damage on his Q strike is truly formidable, especially when his opponent has just been locked down by his W's chain so they can't dodge. Plus, as a manaless champion, it's even easier for him to stay in lane. Pantheon is our second top laner on this list, in no small part due to the abundance of dual potential in his kit. Pantheon is another melee bruiser, just like Aatrox, but with a little more flexibility in his kit. Pantheon can poke from afar or up close with a spear throw on his Q, and once he whittled the enemy down, he can jump on them with his W stun, get an attacker 3 in, and then use his E to disengage while he's invincible or to press on his advance. Pantheon's ult is a semi-global ability that lets him soar in the skies and gank other lanes with ease. He may not be as directly lane impressive as Aatrox, but as soon as he gets his ult, he can start making moves on the map to help his team get the lead. Before we move on to the jungle, we're going to put those builds up on the screen one more time so you guys can get those down. Our first jungle pick that can't lose in the early game is Nunu. Nunu is a utility tank that excels in objective control and counter jungling. With his Q's consume, he can take a huge bite out of jungle monsters for true damage that rivals even Smite at the early stages of the game, and before level 18. When he combines it with his own Smite, he's just about unbeatable in a Smite fight at major objectives like Dragon and Baron. On top of the true damage, it heals him too, keeping him topped off enough to continue rolling around the jungle and lanes alike with his W snowball and his E AoE route. Even though Nunu's built-in sustain and tankiness keeps him too healthy to be an easy kill, his W makes it even harder to pin him down with his ability to grant him immunity to slows. As if that weren't impressive enough, he even gets the benefit of being an excellent tower diver with his AoE slow and burst damage, combined with his Q to buy him more extra health while he's tanking aggro. Olaf is our second pick for not losing early. If you ever encountered a good Olaf, I envy you. Olaf is arguably the best early game duelist in the jungle that League of Legends has to offer, and a good one will run you down at every stage of the game and make sure that you never see the light of the late game. And even then, he'll still run you down. His Q lets him throw axes that passes through the number of targets, giving him a fast clear as well as an ability to chase down champions with its slow. His W not only gives him more power through its attack speed, but also gives him a large amount of lifesteal and increases the healing he receives from any other sources, which can make him too hard to kill in the early levels when champions just simply don't have enough damage and cooldowns to deal with sustain. His E is an auto attack reset that does true damage at the cost of damaging himself, but with the W active, that self damage is negligible. The only real answer to all of this is try to disengage the early fights, but since Olaf's ult lets him ignore CC, even that can prove challenging. Olaf is a hard champion to execute on effectively since he needs to be able to predict the jungle pathing and ruin the enemy jungler as much as possible, but he's well worth the effort. Just like before, here are the builds for the jungle picks so you can memorize them or write them down. Aurelion Sol will be our first mid laner for this list. Aurelion Sol is a champion designed to roam the map and win side lanes for his teammates, but he's actually an excellent champion for keeping things neutral in the early game. His W-empowered stars have a pretty nice range on them, so it's easy to CS and harass from a distance. If someone tries to go in on you, you can just throw out a short range Q to send them and disengage. Once he hits 6, he's even harder to get onto in any meaningful way since his ult just pushes the enemy back towards the outer orbit of his stars to keep himself safe. These 3 abilities alone will get you through most of the laning phase without too much trouble, but make sure you're still looking for roams with his E to help your teammates with more opportunities. He might not be the most aggressive laner, but he's one heck of a ganker, so be sure to capitalize. Neeko is our second early game mid laner, mostly because she just has some ridiculous base damage. Neeko is a burst mage that can sling spells through minion waves to harass her enemies and chunk them down. Her Q is a lob spell that hurts whoever it lands on, and it hurts them even more if they're unfortunate to catch enough all 3 procs of it. Her W creates a clone to distract enemies and let her escape or make a sneaky play, but it also empowers every third auto attack that she gets to make her traits even scarier than they were. Her E is a skill shot route that can be used to disengage any aggression towards her or to lock someone down and secure that triple proc Q. Even her ult is a useful tool for both securing kills or disengaging, since it's a huge AoE that shields her, CCs enemies, and bursts them. All in all, Neeko is a well-rounded champion that simply has too much damage and utility to ever lose the early game in any meaningful way. And here are those mid lane builds one more time. Take another peek at those before we move on to the bottom lane. Our first early game pick in the bot lane is Caitlyn. Caitlyn is a long range AD carry that does an excellent job of harassing her enemies out of lane and punishing their bad positioning. With her having such long attack range, there isn't much answer for her bullying, so she's free to poke without getting punished. The only answer for her range assault is to pick an all-in lane that can get on top of her and elite her. But even then, Caitlyn's traps can be set up in a defensive line to help nullify this, and her E's nets helps her disengage and capitalize with one of the passive headshots. Her Q is a good follow-up, and if anyone tries to weather the bullet storm for too long and overstays, Caitlyn can finish them off with her long-range snipe. She's simply too safe of an AD carry to really hurt early, and a good Caitlyn will have you hiding under your tower asking permission to CS. Just make sure you're aggressive and pressing her advantage. Miss Fortune is another champion that has a hard time losing the early game, and she's one of our second pick for the bot lane. Miss Fortune is a zone controlling ADC that excels in team fights. The reason that she's such a good pick right now is because even though her team fights are where she shines with her ult, she's still a very potent laner. Her Q poke is definitely something to be feared, especially when she crits off a dying minion. It's a hard skill to land consistently, but when you do, your enemies will feel it in their soul. Her W's passive movement speed makes her hard to catch early on, and the attack speed tied into its active makes her a nice duelist in the lane if it devolves into a full-on fight. Her E is a great tool for zoning off aggressors since it slows anyone inside of it, and in combination with MF's own high movement speed, it practically guarantees her safety. All of this wraps up nicely to create an AD carry who really has to fight on her own terms. And when she's allowed to crush the early game, you better believe that she'll be using that AoE ult to crush the team fights as well. The AD carry builds are right there up on your screen, so go ahead and take a look for a second. Nami will be our first pick for the early game support champions. Nami is an enchanter with an uncanny ability to drown out her enemies before the mid game arrives. Most enchanters are held back by the fact that their poke is just kinda meh, or if it's better than meh, it's punishable. But Nami's poke with her W has the benefit of both healing her allies and damaging her enemies, meaning that in a single trade that she can both outdamage the enemy bot lane and nullify whatever they manage to do to her. After she's whittled them down a bit, she can cast her E on either herself or her AD carry to make their attacks slow the enemies to land her Q's AoE stun and start an all-in. Or she can just use her giant tidal wave ultimate to kick things off and cut out the middle man. The answer to this playstyle is to all-in her with a hard engage, but Nami's so good at bullying that by the time the enemy team or your team engages on her, they'll be too weak to do anything. Bard is our second early game support pick, and the final champion on this list. Bard players are few and far between, but the devoted player base of this champion is incredible at exploiting his early game damage and roam capacity. Bard's Q is a stun that hits up to 2 targets as well as dealing a huge chunk of damage. When partnered with the Meeb empowered auto attack, he procs electrocute and can take a quarter of their health bar off at level 1 by this trait alone. His W is a shrine that grows into an increasingly large heal, but it also gives him movement speed, so it's flexible enough to be cast on Bard or one of his allies to give him a little extra chase or escape potential if he just casts it at base value. This extra burst of movement speed helps Bard keep the optimal distance from aggressive champions while also raining down damage of his own. His E lets him set up tunnels through terrain, which can either be used to help his jungler gank from interesting angles or just to go in and do some ganking of his own. Bard's ult is the hardest part of his kit to utilize, and it definitely takes some trial and error. But once you have it down, it's an invaluable tool that makes for picks and saving your allies. Regardless though, the key to winning the lane with Bard is your positioning. So keep yourself at a good distance and always be looking for stun angles with the Q or opportunities to trade with Meep empowered autos. And before we wrap it all up, here's one last look at the support builds for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed the video along with the rest of our patch 10.7 series. Once again, let us know in the comments what champion you think is the best blind pick, so we can hit you guys up with that hot, fresh heart react, as we really do love hearing from you guys. See you guys next time, good luck on the Rift, and wash your hands. Oh, and I'll see you guys in the comment section down below.